It was a day pretty much like any other. Mom, 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 mom. And I'm like, whoa, hold your horses. To which the response was, Mom, I don't have any horses. And that's what it can be like living with a literal thinker, which is what we have in our house. And that's what I want to talk about today, living with a literal thinker. Hi, and welcome to Learning Life. Thank you so much for joining me today as we talk about literal thinkers. We have one in our family, and it can create some moments where we have to turn and not laugh. But you know what? These are the things that make life. And part of also what makes life enjoyable is people like you watching these videos and letting me know that you're enjoying them. Thank you so much for that. And why not check out our website, LearningThis.Life, with the blog posts that go with these vlogs. And hey, subscribe and know when the next video is going to come out. Wow, literal thinkers. You know, they are the ones that just take that word for word meaning of what you are saying. And so yep, hold your horses. I don't have any horses. It's like, yes, that is true. So their actual meanings of the words, anything that's implied or anything like that is really going to be just over their head. That's what I love about our literal thinkers is that they are thinking deep. They are thinking, really, this is what I've heard and this is what it means. Now, most children do go through a literal thinking phase. Really, as children are developing and their vocabulary and their language, they do go through this time of sort of translating and making everything literal. They do sort of develop out of that. But what happens when your child remains a literal thinker? Are you ready for that? If we're going to be living with a literal thinker and we're not a literal thinker, then maybe we need to change how we are communicating. Now, as I said, children will develop in their thinking. They actually learn to think through exploration and play. And there are some simple ways to help build a strong foundation in thinking, whether or not it's creative thinking or abstract or critical thinking, whatever it is, it even just helps our literal thinkers as they explore. We need to provide play opportunities. This is easy. Just let them play. Let them explore. Don't intervene immediately. This could be a little hard. We see something going on. We might want to jump in, but give them the time to be able to think through something and work it through and mull it over and sort of try to work it out themselves. Ask open-ended questions. Not the yes or no answers. Did you have a good day at school? Yes or no, but, what was something exciting and fun that happened at school today? Helping them to think, helping them to develop that strong foundation. Talk through possible scenarios or hypotheses or whatever you want to sort of call it. What are the things that could happen here? If you did this, what do you think might happen? Providing those opportunities to think through some different steps is really going to help with thinking skills. And that's what we want for our children, right? To really help them to become better thinkers. We had another situation of at a party and the little one comes to the face and the sadness. And I just, without thinking, went, turn that frown upside down. And I got the other look and it's like, Mom, I can't turn my head upside down. That's not possible. And I'm trying so very hard not to laugh and explain, I just meant smile. And I got that whole look of why didn't you just say that? I get those looks a lot. Just say it like that. We have such a rich language. Well, really, the English language is complex, even for native good speakers of English. We have metaphors and idioms and puns and euphemisms. Let's not forget sarcasm and irony and, all of these different things the et cetera, the et cetera. It's not straightforward. And so for our children who are literal thinkers, this can be really hard. I'm not really sure. Like, is there an implied meaning there? I'm going to take it at the direct face value. So you might end up with lots of questions like, are you joking? Been getting that one a lot lately. Mom, are you joking? That look of like, I'm trying to work that out. I realize, my natural sort of bent is towards a little bit more like sarcasm, exaggeration, being a little bit over the top and things. And to get that whole, are you joking? Is this what you mean? It makes me realize just how much I actually sort of need to tone it down. And it's sort of, my husband is English as a second language. So you'd think that I would have maybe toned it down a little bit. I have actually. But in having small children, they're 6 now, but still I'm like, oh, you don't actually get that. Your vocabulary isn't there. And now another aspect of a literal thinker is that concrete thinker. This is a literal thinker that is just focused on the physical, the here and now, like these objects. We often think about concrete and abstract thinking. Well, concrete is part of being a literal thinker. And we will often think, if we're thinking literal thinkers, we sort of often will think, oh, well, a child or an adult or someone we know that, has autism or has Asperger's or maybe one of those processing things, like they're a literal thinker. Now, that is true. It is quite a characteristic of someone with autism or Asperger's, but it's not limited to them. And not all people with autism or Asperger's are literal thinkers. And so you have to think like how we communicate when we want to live with our literal thinkers. Like, how do we communicate? Are we helping them to see that maybe there is a meaning beyond just that direct translation? Because we often think of like literal translation being like that word for word, like we're translating this text in from, like, let's say German into English. It's a word for word. It's a literal translation. And you might then read it and it might be like stilted or it doesn't like come across right. Well, that's because it is just a literal word for word. And that's what literal thinkers do. They're not understanding fully. Maybe there is an implied meaning, or maybe there is a secondary meaning that they just don't know, like to that word. Well, think about that, like with your children that might be literal thinkers, that they are taking word for word, and with their experience and their vocabulary and their understanding, they are then translating it into this. And that might not be what we actually meant. There might have been an implied meaning, but they are going to have this literal translation of the words, and that's how they're going to communicate. Now, I have talked about the Daniel Tiger Potty song before. Not my favorite song, though I do love Daniel Tiger. Now, this song, maybe it has to do with the fact that I'm Australian and we don't say like I go potty. Like potty is that little plastic thing that children sit in like before they maybe graduate up to the toilet. So to say I need to go potty is not something that I grew up with. But having a literal thinking child, if you need to go potty, stop and go right away. To her, that means I need to go, so I just stop and I go right away. Really, the song is saying if you need to go to the potty, if you need to go to the toilet, then you need to stop and go to the toilet. But to my little literal thinker, and I have worked with young children who are literal thinkers who have taken that song, if you need to go potty, stop and go right away, to its actual meaning of if you need to go, just stop and go. Like not thinking through if you need to actually go to the toilet, if you need to go to the potty, then you need to stop and actually go there. Because the lyrics to the song is if you need to go potty, stop and go right away. That makes for some fun memories, doesn't it? And it is a great song and it has helped so many children, but it's made me stop and think as I write songs for my girls or as I'm working with other children about how I need to be careful. Like to go potty, is that the verb or is it to go to the potty, like the noun? Like in what we are doing and we're saying, are we communicating in the best way? Because maybe there is a reason why they just stop and go right away. Well, that leads into it. Just another little fun toilet story to finish off this video. Yes, toilet training. And so we had one that had mastered it quite well. And our literal thinker would often come out and be like, why do you smell like poo? And why is there a mess in our bathroom? Well, you see, the other sister had told her when doing number 2, you just squeeze it. Just squeeze it. So she did. She did her number 2 and then she squeezed it. Yes, that's right. Because we have this literal translation thing going on. You said squeeze it. I did it. Thankfully, we have moved beyond that. But it is really taught, like in living with a literal thinker, just actually communicating and teaching that maybe there is a different meaning to it, or it is not just this specific, this is the actual meaning of the words and this is what it's meant. It's okay to, and we should be teaching our literal thinkers to say, is that what you meant? Or did you mean this? Or could you please explain? My hope is as she's moving more into logical thinking, and she's definitely a great critical thinker, I do appreciate that too, that we can see that it's easier to live and to understand and to be together this way, which is all a great thing. Well, thank you so much for watching today. And I would love to hear if you have a literal thinker, like what are some of the things that you've come up against, or maybe some of the stories, because these stories are fun and they make us realize we're not on our own. Or is there something that's really worked for you in helping your literal thinker? And, if this is something that you enjoy and want to see more content, then maybe you could join us as a champion through Patreon so that we can continue to get more videos out like this. And you can check that out on patreon.com or LearningThis.Life.